Hello, welcome back to my channel. You're watching What Helen Reads, and today I've got another Mafia Monday video for you. So last time I shared my Mafia journey with you and explained how I fell in love with Mafia romances and gave you some recommendations about what I think would work if you were new to Mafia romances as well. I'm going to dive straight in and recommend some authors and series of Mafia books that you may not have heard about and are probably on the darker side. These are definitely not for the faint-hearted. All of these authors that I'm going to recommend definitely write extremely alpha, possessive males. Often that don't believe that women have the same rights as they do. Definitely lots of trigger warnings in their books, scenes of dubious consent, non-consent, and often BDSM elements to them. So like I say, these are definitely on the darker side. So if you are sensitive to that, then like I say, I'll definitely read the trigger warnings before you dive in. So the first one I'm going to talk to you about today is Bianca Cole. Now she writes predominantly Mafia series. Now what I like about her series and what she does with them is they usually set around a city. So she's done one in Boston and Chicago and New York, and often they each book is about a different the head of a different Mafia family. So you get a really good spread of whether that's Bratva, so Russian Mafia, or Italian Mafia, Irish Mafia. We've also had some cartel. And so I really like the fact that it kind of normally focuses on a different Mafia family, and generally there's an overarching storyline behind each of the books. So as we go through the series, the different obviously Mafia families are often at war with each other and need different allies to support that, and like I say, there's kind of this overriding plot in a lot of the series that she does. So I particularly enjoy that element. My personal favourite series that she's written is the Boston series. So this is Boston Mafia series, and this contains 5 books. The first one is Cruel Daddy, then we have Savage Daddy, Ruthless Daddy, Vicious Daddy, and Wicked Daddy. So also by the titles it might be a bit of a clue. So Bianca Cole also does write quite a lot of daddy kink as well. You know, it's not like the heroine becomes very childlike, not that type of daddy kink, but the heroes like to be called daddy, or the heroines like to call their partners daddy while they're having sex. And so yeah, there's a little bit of daddy kink going on in there. So the first book is Cruel Daddy. This is basically an Italian Mafia story. It's the head of the Italian Mafia in Boston, and he has an arranged marriage with the Mafia princess of an Italian Mafia boss in Sicily, in Italy itself. So she's grown up on the island of Sicily. She absolutely loves it there. She's very close with her father since her mother passed away. But unbeknownst to her, her father has got some enemies and her life is in danger, and he decides to arrange marriage with the head of the Italian Boston Mafia in order to make sure that she is safe and protected. Now she doesn't know any of this, so when her father sends her away to Boston to marry a man she doesn't know, she isn't too happy about it, and she doesn't really speak to her father for quite some time afterwards. But nevertheless, she has to go to Boston to marry this guy, and he isn't too nice. He's going to marry her for the political alliance. It will give him extra power to be married to this family from Italy. But he's not really expecting too much from her. She's just going to be a bit of arm candy. He's going to be able to do whatever he wants with her. So at first, he isn't too nice to her. But she stands her ground. She's pretty feisty. He does, you know, he is able to sort of like overpower her, and like I say, he's very alpha and possessive, so she doesn't get too much say in what goes on, but she doesn't also take it lying down either. And over the course of the book, obviously he falls in love with her and has a desire to protect her, and we see characters from the next couple of books as well come into the storyline, and we'll learn a bit more about the dynamics of what's going on in Boston with the other families. The second one in the series is my absolute favourite. It's Savage Daddy, and this is an Irish Mafia story. The head of this Irish Mafia, he's pretty wild and crazy. He's He's a little bit unhinged, and he doesn't treat his women very well at all. Now this second book is basically a virgin auction scenario where the heroine needs some money. She goes to put herself forward in this virgin auction, and it's bought by the guy of this Irish mafia. Now normally, like I say, he's pretty brutal to the women that he buys at auction, but there's something about her that just stops him from being his normal evil self. He's only semi-evil instead, and it's just really interesting how their kind of relationship develops, and we learn quite a lot of other things that are going on generally in Boston with other characters, and we meet other characters as well. If you like the sound of it, I think Bianca Cole is great. She's got loads and loads of different Mafia series, and usually there are sort of 5 books in the series. They're all really good. Like I said, the Boston one is my favourite, so I'll definitely start there. So the next one I want to talk about is Measha Stone. So Measha Stone has got a Mafia series. It's a trilogy. It's got 3 books in it. Taken by him, Kept by him, and Captivated by him. Now Measha Stone writes a lot of different types of books, but in every single book, all of her, very much like Bianca Cole, all of her heroes are very alpha, possessive, and there's, you know, it's high steam. Again, definitely read the trigger warnings if you're sensitive to that before you go in. So this series, again, each of the books in this series is pretty short. The first book is only 178 pages, so it's no novella length really, and the second 2 are like upwards of almost 300 pages, but they're pretty fast reads. I'm not going to go too much into these, but it's based on, they're all arranged marriages basically. And the first book, Taken by him, is an arranged marriage, but the heroine is a twin, and she's the youngest twin, so it's the eldest twin that's due to be arranged in marriage to the hero in the story. They're actually arranged in, they're sort of like promised in marriage at the age of 16, but they won't be married until they're 21. But they kind of do a bit of a twin swap. So she knows that her elder sister really doesn't want to get married to this guy and is very scared about getting married to him. So she decides that she is going to sacrifice herself on behalf of her twin and does a bit of a twin swap. So that is kind of what the first book is about. But like I say, they're all arranged marriages. So if you're into arranged Mafia marriages, then check out Measha Stone. So then the next author I want to talk about is Piper Stone. So again, she writes extremely alpha heroes. Quite a lot of her books are sort of verging on erotica, some dub-con, some non-con, and basically heroes that don't take no for an answer. If you don't like that, then definitely don't read Piper Stone. After you've read quite a few of them, quite a lot of her heroes are very, very similar in the way they behave. And so you either kind of like her or you don't like her. So I'd just recommend trying a couple, and if you like them, great. She's got plenty of books. She brings out probably 2 a month, so she's a very prolific writer, and lots of different stories as well. So she's done some Mafia series, but she's also done some Alien sort of romance series, as well as shifter romances as well. The series I want to highlight though is the King's series. So the 6 books in her King series is basically following the King family, and there's basically 5 brothers and 1 sister, and so each of the siblings kind of gets their own book. The first book is King's Captive, and this basically starts very much with the eldest son in this family. He killed a man, and there was a witness, and our heroine witnessed him murdering someone, and she actually went to the police and she testified against him in court, and as a result he went to prison. So when he gets out of prison, his first port of call is to track her down and to punish her. Now the way Piper Stone's men punish their women is you know, some harsh spankings and some dubious consent sex scenes, and that's basically what we get in pretty much the opening of this series. But King takes a instant like to this heroine, and at first he thinks he's going to punish her for, you know, testifying against him in court, but he very quickly realizes that he's extremely attracted to this person, and he decides to take her captive and make her his instead. And this is pretty much a theme of kind of all the books and what happens with all the brothers as well. But there isn't, again, there's an overriding plot point in terms of what this family is, who their enemies are, what their own enemies are trying to do to bring them down. So again, what I like about this is there's individual standalone stories. The heroes are definitely very alpha, very possessive, and don't take no for an answer. But equally, beyond all of that, there is actually a fairly good storyline that wraps around all of the books until we get to the last book. So if you want to try something a bit different, and you don't mind something on the slightly kinkier side and the darker side, then again, Piper Stone's a good choice, and the King's series, the Mafia series that she wrote, is one of my favourites from her. Next up then we have an author called Zoe Blake, and she writes quite a lot of Russian Mafia series. Again, these men are absolutely crazy and wild. They do not take no for an answer, and as soon as they see the woman that they want, that's it, they're sold. They're completely in love with these people and completely obsessed by them. So I absolutely love these because they're just absolutely wild and crazy kind of stories and books. The series that I recommend is the Ivanov crime family. There's just 3 books in this series, and we've got Savage Vow, Vicious Oath, and Betrayed Honour. And this the first 2 books follow 2 brothers who are in the Ivanov family, and the third one is their head of security. I love this one because basically there are 3 girls who are best friends, and they've grown up together and they're kind of mafia princesses. And one of the girls is betrothed. So basically the first book is about Gregor and Samara. Now Samara is due to have an arranged marriage with Gregor, but she does not want to marry him. And so her and her best friend Yelena decide that they're going to run away, and so she doesn't have to marry him, and they kind of go on the run. Their third friend Nadia knows that they're going to run away, but she chooses to stay behind and stay with her brothers because also she's not arranged in marriage yet. And she's really sad to see her friends go, but she kind of helps them escape, and then they kind of go off. And for 3 years, both Gregor and his brother Damien try and track these girls down, and they always manage to kind of get away. So basically every time Gregor and Damien get really, really close on their tail, they kind of like realise they're coming and they escape to a different city. And so along the way, both Gregor and Damien become obsessed with the girls. So Gregor, he's obsessed with Samara. That's the woman he's supposed to be marrying. He's completely outraged and enraged that she's tried to escape marrying him, and he, you know, is desperate to get her back, punish her for running away, and is still determined to marry her. And in the process, Damien kind of falls for Yelena because, you know, it's a bit of a chase situation, isn't it? Where he's like been chasing this girl and her friend for 3 years, and he kind of almost gets obsessed with her and finding her and being with her as well. So the first 2 books kind of do overlap sort of in timeline, because when they finally catch up to these girls, they kind of go their own way. They sort of split up, and Gregor takes Samara, and Yelena is taken by Damien to somewhere else. Just because of the way the plot points work, they kind of have to split up. But in doing so, then they're in close proximity with each other, and of course they end up together. Meanwhile then, the third book is about Mikhail and Nadia, and Mikhail is the head of security for this family, and he's kind of tasked with looking after and bodyguarding Nadia. She gets herself into a sticky spot and she needs rescuing, and of course he's the one to rescue her. So this is crazy, wild, wacky, lots of crazy things, and Zoe Blake writes some amazing Russian mafia heroes who are just completely obsessed with their women and just won't take no for an answer. So highly recommend that if that's of interest to you, but also do please remember to check the trigger warnings on those as well. And then the fifth and final one that I wanted to mention is something slightly tamer. And again, I don't really hear too many people talking about this author, but this is Rebecca Gannon, and she wrote the Carfano crime family series, of which there's 4 books in the series so far. I don't know if she's going to be writing any more, but there's certainly only 4 out right now. So this follows the Carfano crime family. There's 3 brothers and 1 sister, and of course each of the siblings gets their own book. And the first book is called Casino King. And in this one we have the second oldest brother, so he's not in charge, but he's pretty senior in the Mafia, and he owns a number of casinos in Atlantic City, and he is obsessed with this dancer in one of his clubs. Like I say, he becomes completely obsessed with her, watches her every night, leaves her a rose at the end of her performance, and generally keeps tabs on her. Now, he stays away to start with because he doesn't want her getting involved in the Mafia life, but he's very much obsessed, a bit of a stalker really, and keeps his eye on her. And when she gets into trouble and her life is threatened, he decides he's going to step in, and that starts a relationship between those two. The second book is about his eldest brother, who is head of the family, and it's a book basically, again, that's a second chance romance where when he was younger, before he became head of the Mafia, he had a girlfriend, he was massively in love with her, they were going to get married, but then when his father died and he became head of the family, he decided he had to cut ties with her so that she wasn't drawn into his world and that her life wouldn't be at risk. But he's been pining over her ever since, and she's been heartbroken and not really understanding why he split up with her. And eventually, when they get back together or their paths cross once more, he decides it's time that he's gonna try and win her back, and he has to do quite a bit of grovelling in order to make her believe that, one, to tell her what he does and why he left, and to get over that hurdle, and then to make her believe that he's really gonna stick with her this time. Yeah, and then the series goes from there really. So again, don't want to say too much. They're into, you know, you can read them in isolation, but they kind of interlock in terms of their storyline overall. And Rebecca Gannon is definitely not as crazy or wild as some of the other authors I've talked about today, but still a really good solid Mafia series that I highly recommend. So I hope you enjoyed that. That's all I've got for today. If you like this, please give it a thumbs up. Subscribe if you want to see more content from me, and comment down below some of your favourite Mafia romances, or if you've ever read anything from any of these authors and what you have to say. So thank you very much for watching, and I hope to see you next time. Bye! You have Savage Vow, Vicious Oath, and did I write down the third one? Didn't even write down the third one. So last time I shared my hi and welcome back. No, don't need to do that because you've done that.